Hello guys, welcome along, hope you're all doing well. We're back in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 for a new video, and today we're going to be continuing my series with a 2024 settings guide to see if I can help you get a bit better performance out of the sim. And with a bit of a caveat here, obviously this is geared towards my PC, which is a fairly decent spec. It's not top end, but pretty decent, and I'll pop that on the screen now for you. And this is going to differ slightly for you guys depending on your own systems, but there are a couple of little settings I'm going to show you that can actually make quite a big difference on performance. So I thought I'd load in here at Innsbruck, which is one of the most spectacular locations, plenty of terrain and mountains around, which should act as a good performance test. So let's open our settings menu and get started. Right, from the top then, display mode is full screen, HDR10 is switched off, full screen res is 1440p. Our anti-aliasing is set to TAA and render scaling at 1440p is on 100. We have DLSS frame generation switched on and our AMD Fidelity FX sharpening set to 100. VSync is switched off in the sim, but I do have it turned on in my Nvidia control panel, so I'll just show you that. So you need to click on the Program Settings tab in 3D Settings, make sure MSFS 2024 is selected, and I've got max frame rate set to 62 FPS. And then VSync is on, and then everything else in there is just left on default. So that's all I've got set in the Nvidia control panel. And back in the sim then, everything else there is pretty much left on default. So let's go to our global rendering quality, and as a starting point we'll set everything to high end and tweak it from there. And first off, I have my terrain level of detail set to 150, so we'll just wind that in to 150. There we go. Off-screen terrain pre-caching I have set to ultra, so we'll set that. And then displacement mapping, I'll just leave that on, and then I'll set our buildings to ultra as well. And then for trees, plants, rocks and grass, there's no discernible difference really, so I'll leave all that on high. And our object level of detail, I pop that on 200. And then just scrolling down a bit, on volumetric clouds I also set that to ultra because I like the clouds looking nice. And then pretty much everything else I leave on the high-end default settings. Ray trace shadows I leave on, but I will come back to that in a minute. So continuing to scroll down then, terrain shadows, contact shadows, windshield effects, ambient occlusion, everything is set to default. The only thing I do like to do is switch motion blur off, because that's really annoying, so there we go. And that is pretty much everything for my sort of preferred setup. So, as I said, this is geared towards my PC. What about if you guys are struggling a bit on performance and you want to know some settings to help out with that? Well, there are three main settings that I've found that really impact FPS and stutters. The first one obviously is our terrain level of detail. We can drop that down. 150 works okay for me, but if you want to drop that down to 100 or something like that. And then the next big one is trees. Again, I have these set to high as that works okay for me, but if you are struggling, I would recommend dropping this down to low, as the trees do have quite a substantial impact on your frame rate. And again, moving down to our object level of detail, drop that down to 100 as well if you're struggling, that will help. You could also drop the volumetric clouds to sort of medium or low as well, that could help. But the big one I've found is the ray trace shadows, and if you turn those off, I found that I actually got about 10, maybe even 15% better performance on my GPU usage. So if you are struggling for performance, that is one to definitely try turning off. It doesn't obviously look quite as nice in the sim, but definitely worth trying if you are struggling. Okay, so let's save those settings and we will go back into the sim and see how everything is looking. So we are all set and ready for our departure on runway 26, so let's hop inside and see what sort of performance we get. Right, so we're just holding on the brakes and thrust levers to the flex gate, and away we go. I do think the ground texturing does look quite a bit better in 2024, to be honest, as we're just starting to pick up a bit of momentum now. It's all still nice and smooth, no stuttering. And V1 rotate, and up we go. Still getting a nice steady FPS, no stutters, and that's a positive rate gear up. We'll just pitch down a touch, follow those flight directors, and let's get the autopilot on. So AP1 engaged, So everything's still looking nice and smooth from inside the flight deck. Let's hop outside and see what kind of performance we get. And I find a really good way to test the performance is to pan around in the drone camera, and as you can see, get a few little micro stutters, but generally speaking that's pretty smooth. There's an awful lot of terrain and buildings to load in, so I'm pretty happy with that. Very spectacular departure as well out of Innsbruck, isn't it? And another key factor for performance is the weather, so let's change that. At the minute we're on clear skies, so what should we go for? Let's go broken clouds. That should add a fair amount of weather, and we just close that down. There we go. So you can see there's an awful lot of cloud around. We've got the city below us, a lot of mountains and terrain to load in, and we're still getting a nice steady smooth FPS as we pan around. Look at that. That does look pretty cool. That lighting change as well looks absolutely superb. And let's continue tweaking the weather. Let's try another couple of settings. Let's add some rain into the mix to see what kind of impact that has. There we go. Oop, close that again. So the mountains have disappeared. Yeah, not seeing a great deal, but again, still pretty smooth. And we'll just continue panning around with the drone, and then we will try some more weather settings. And let's get our weather menu back open again, and let's try one more. What should we go for? Let's go light thunderstorm. That's a bit better visibility. But as you can see, an awful lot of weather around, so this will be a good test. Again, continue to pan around with the drone. Yep, I'm not seeing a great deal of stutter in there. When you consider the amount of data the sim's trying to handle, that's also why I chose the Fenix A320, because that's quite a complicated aircraft too, so all has impact on your performance. Right, so let's just do one final test, and we'll change the time to night as well. See if we can pick up a few of those lightning bolts and a bit of night lighting as well. So let's go a bit later. There we go. So we've got a bit of night lighting, and if we just continue to pan around, there we go, there's a few lightning strikes. But again, I'm more than happy with that. So I think I will wrap it up there for today. Hopefully that gives you some understanding of how I get a nice stable performance on my own rig. Obviously for you guys it will be slightly different, but as I said in the intro, try a few of those different settings to sort of maximise your own performance. But that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe you learned something new. Give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.